Smoking hasn't been allowed on planes in Europe anyway since 1988, and yet there's still a bleeding non-smoking sign. This is going somewhere, right? Hang in with me. Above every single row we have this universally recognizable non-smoking symbol that's continuously lit, and I've never been on a plane where there's some lad sitting there and he's like, I was just gonna, can I not, I didn't see the, do you know what I mean? Maybe years ago, but still planes that have been made in the last 10 years still hold that light there. And it might be to do with insurance or, well, I just think it's complacency. That's what I think it is. And it could be better used for, say, a Wi-Fi, and if there's Wi-Fi in the flight, it's lit and then it goes off and there's no Wi-Fi anymore. Or as it's coming to land, the same way with a seatbelt sign or with your electronics. Everybody has electronics on the flight, so you can let them know when they're allowed to use it and when they're not. How does all this tie in with nature and trees and that? Right, here we go. We were doing a public project and there was a biodiversity officer assigned to it. And they said, will you send us through all of the trees and plants that you're proposing? So we sent them through the botanical and the common names. And they came back to us and said, just to make sure all of these are native, yeah? And for me, it was so apparent that it was a box ticking exercise because the rules state everything has to be native. And I just think that you need to throw out the rule book sometimes, and it just isn't relevant sometimes. Absolutely. In a rural environment or a woodland that you're feeding into, or you're establishing an eco trail anywhere that's closer to what we in the West say nature, right? Absolutely, yeah. We should be promoting native. But if it's a built up urban environment, somewhere like Temple Bar, that has more in common environmentally or materialistically with Manhattan in New York than it does with Mayo, why are we still hell-bent on using, well, that's been here since the Ice Age, so it's native, so that's what we should be using. These are artificial man-made environments surrounded by concrete and brick. We need drought-tolerant nectar-rich plants because whatever pollinators are around, we need them to be getting the best feed that they can. A tree like an amelanchier is naturalized. And naturalized simply means a non-native tree that has stayed and it's not too invasive. It's behaved itself, so it's allowed to stay. So we call them naturalized. And that would do better in an urban environment because it flowers early, there's no thorns on it, so the safety aspect of it. And I just think we can't get complacent or dogmatic. I know that with landscape architecture, it's so important to look at the wider context and how the space interconnects with the neighbouring spaces and the users of it. But let's not just say, well, it has to be native. We should always be looking at first of all, what is the ecosystem of that space? Are there bats, bugs, birds, bees, anything else beginning with B? If there are certain species that have been seen in and around there that we're trying to encourage, should we not be looking at what they require and facilitating them accordingly? Now that might well be native, fair enough, but let's just not close ourselves off. It's very important that we always provide the best experience for the end user as well as facilitating the local ecosystem that's establishing there. So mull on that and I'll talk to you soon.